I hope you have got the data also that I've shared. Okay. So that is the Landsat data, Landsat 8 data for the year 2014, and is that is related with the Pune city and the surroundings. Okay. So I am going to also give you a presentation where actually you can uh, go back and look at this recording, and you do this LST retrieval on your own. Okay? Because we are from geography, we are mostly uh, we mostly look at these kind of data sets as one of the applications, though we are not from physics background or engineering background. So, but before uh, applying these data sets, of course, I do take help of some of my colleagues from the physics department, because some of the equations that we don't understand, some of the terms used in the equations, they don't understand. So coming back to the topic, remote sensing of urban climate. Before that, I would like to acknowledge some of the uh, members and people that I work with, because this is collaborative work. Of course, first of all, my wife, Dr. Anarga Dubde, who is also professor of geography in Nauroji Wadia College. Then my students, Dr. Mahendra Korde, Dr. Mansi Desai, Ms. Rakhi Dikshit, Ms. Gauri Deshpande, Ms. Rushali Bangar. They are the ones with whom I have done some of the work related to urban climate, and that is what I will be sharing with you. And whenever we talk about climate, the first thing that comes to our mind is climate change. And climate change, as it has its impact on a lot of other sectors and regions, it also exerts added stress on urban areas. For example, heat waves. So heat waves, they impact urban areas also. And why? Because we have more number of population that is living in a very, very small area. And it has been believed that next 20 years or 2 decades or so, 50% of the world's population will be living in cities. And cities are also considered to be the wealth generating machines of nations, because 80% of the generated wealth comes from cities. So here we have to take care of the cities or the urban areas. And apart from climate change, cities, they already face some significant climatic and environmental challenges, okay, that are independent of climate change. Whether climate change is there or not there, they have their own challenges about the flash floods that are occurring in the urban areas, about the pollution, that is air pollution, water pollution, land pollution. There are challenges about waste disposal. So apart from that, cities are already having a lot of challenges. And the cities residents, okay, particularly the poor, they are affected more whenever there is some kind of environmental crisis. And these are people also, they are also outdoor workers. So always they're exposed to this outdoor environment since they're working outdoors. So, and poor people, they live in shanties, in small houses made up of, and during heat waves or such conditions, they are again exposed. So it is the urban poor that is more affected than the little rich people, or because we have our own uh, uh, what we say, a kind of a protection that we have given to ourselves, because we are economically much more, we live in better houses, we can afford certain things that poor cannot afford. Now, as far as remote sensing is concerned, in the last 3 4 decades, since the advent of the satellites, uh, the use of remote sensing and the opportunities that have uh, been created to monitor cities, to monitor the thermal regime of the cities, and a lot of other aspects, that has increased enormously. So we are here more focused on urban climate. In very, very simple words, we can say that urban climate, it refers to the specific climatic conditions in cities that differ from the surrounding areas as an effect of the urban development. So as the cities keep on developing, the city's climate, the thermal regime, it also keeps on changing because of this urban development, which we call it as urbanization or industrialization. Okay, so urbanization, urbanization, urbanization tremendously changes the form of the natural landscape, causing changes in the local climate. Okay. So not only compared to the surrounding areas, but also inside the city. So in here we have city wards, or in other countries it is referred to as city districts as such. So from one district to the other district, some of the parameters they keep on changing. There may not be much change as far as precipitation is concerned, but when you talk about, when you observe temperature, it can be very different from one ward to the other ward, or from one urban district to the other urban district. While some climatic elements they differ very slightly, precipitation, some they differ significantly. For example, temperature, for example, wind, because we have urban structures that can block wind, that can divert wind in different directions. So temperature and wind, they are likely to change significantly from one urban area to the other urban area. With the construction of buildings, parking lots, and houses, urban areas they dramatically change the smoothness of a surface. Okay. The thermal conductivity of the surface is changed. The hydraulic conductivity changes. The albedo of the surface changes. The emissivity and the fraction of vegetation cover. Vegetation cover also uh, uh, it also changes as the cities develop. Nowadays, in some cities, it has been made compulsory to plant a certain number of trees whenever a new building is constructed or a new household is constructed. So there is, at least in Pune Municipal Corporation, I am aware about that. So now the thing is that some cities, their green cover is increasing. But having said so, the overall impact is such that a lot of other aspects, they are not same, like they were when the surface was simply a natural landscape. Now it is been superimposed by our cultural landscape. Okay. So one thing that is very specific to the urban areas, it is the urban heat island. The urban surface and morphology results in cities being relatively warmer than the immediate rural surroundings. Okay. And that phenomena is called as urban heat island. Now, this phenomena is very, very pronounced during the evening hours or during the night hours. Okay. During the day, particularly in the tropical areas, you will find that if the city is surrounded by very barren slopes, barren hills, or barren land, then if you look at the broader landscape, during the daytime, you'll find that these barren areas are also very hot compared to the city. But we are here talking about the urban heat island. And whenever, for example, a very simple example would be, suppose it is a evening time and you are approaching a city, you'll find that there is a certain increase in the temperature as you approach towards the city center, and that is called as the urban heat island. There are different kinds of UHIs, okay, displaying different characteristics and controlled by different assemblages of energy exchanges. You have a boundary layer urban heat island, you have a canopy urban heat island, you have surface urban heat island. Okay. So different kinds of urban heat islands are there, and some urban heat islands, they can be monitored using conventional methods, and some of them there we can use remote sensing. So thermal remote sensing, it permits definition of an UHI named ground or surface UHI, or SUHI, that is surface urban heat island. So with the help of thermal remote sensing, we can monitor surface urban heat island, so which refers to the skin or surface temperature difference between the city and its surrounding areas. So the skin temperature, that is the surface temperature of the city and the surrounding. So that is defined as the surface, it defines the surface urban heat island. And now coming to the use of remote sensing as such, whenever it comes to urban studies. So this is a diagram. So again, there was some internet issue.
Sir, video is on. Just share the screen. Yes, okay, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
Change the mode of presentation to PowerPoint. Yes.
Okay. So here you could see that over the years, the articles where remote sensing is used or thermal remote sensing is used, or uh, remote sensing and climate for climate studies is used. See that these yellow bars are for climate, red ones or the orange one is for thermal, and heat island is for green. So in all of the cases, the number of research papers, they are getting increasing over the years. So people are now more and more inclined towards using remote sensing for urban studies, for urban climate, for climate related studies. And we are having more such sensors which can give and provide data for such studies. So here I will be sharing with you one study related with Pune. Why we did that? Because 10, 15 years back, when I completed my PhD and I took some 60 cities around uh, India and tried to um, uh, study long-term temperature trends, long-term precipitation trends. So you could see here that most of these red circles which are filled, it indicates that these cities, the temperature is increasing, and mostly in the, particularly if you see the post-monsoon season, everywhere we'll find that filled red circle, that the temperature is increasing significantly. But if you look at this annual TM, everywhere the temperature is increasing in southern peninsula, but here this blue dot, this is Pune, which indicated that the temperature is decreasing. Now the thing is that whenever you are using the data from meteorological station, it is actually a microclimate data, and that is a data from one particular point. So that will not give you what is the happening to the whole city. So we said that let us now individually see what is the case with Pune city, because it must be only that particular area must be experiencing a decreasing trend where the meteorological station is there, but other areas may not be experiencing that. So we took up this Pune city. So the data, and if you see the mean annual temperature of Pune, little bit of decreasing trend is there from for the last 100 years. Of course, the objectives, we are going to talk about all this afterwards. Whenever you are using satellite data, we have to also, as you know now, many lectures you have listened during this FDP. So you have to make a lot of other corrections like atmospheric correction, radiometric correction. And nowadays you get data sets that are corrected they for atmospherically, radiometrically, geometrically, they're all corrected. For example, Moody's data, when you take whatever I've used, this is level 3 data, scientific data, you can directly use it. But certain data, when you collect raw data, you have to do certain corrections, which you already know. Now here, this is one simple example where This is the Pune city's built up, land use in 1990 and in 2008. Of course, we have done for other this thing also, just to give you an example. So what has happened in 1990, all the red areas, those are the built up areas. And in 2008, what we see, the red areas have increased. That means the built up areas have increased. That means the surface that is covered by concrete and such substances, it has increased, which completely changes the property of the surface. So we have now more surfaces that can absorb more heat and can retain more heat. And overall built up area, as you could see, in February 89, it was 15%, and afterwards it has become 42%. And now today it is somewhere around 45%. Okay. So change in built up here in the first image, you can see the yellow color was the built up in 1990, whereas the yellow, the increased built up, it is shown by the what we say violet, or the violet color as such here. So enormously, and see the second map is related with the vegetation cover. So this is a simple FCC that you can make for vegetation, and you can simply map with the help of the false color composite the vegetation in 1990 and then the 2008. As you could see, vegetation or agricultural built up, and areas where no change in the vegetation is there, or areas where the vegetation is, the red color indicates areas where the vegetation is replaced by either or the vegetation or agricultural land is replaced by built up. Okay. And the green color shows that there is no change in the vegetation. It means that there are certain areas where the vegetation has not changed, but there are also equal number of percentage of area is there where the vegetation or agricultural land has changed to built up land. Okay. Or so it means that all these areas there, slowly we took some Landsat images from of April 1990, 1994, 1992, 2008, and 2015. On the other slide, it is there. If you look at the center part of the city, and if you look at the legend here, in the central part in April 1990, the temperatures were somewhere around 28 degrees to Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius. And in 1994, again, the temperatures have increased a little bit and gone up to, in certain areas, up to more than 30. In 1992, in 2008, you see that the shading has completely changed. And in the city center, the temperature is 38 to 40 degrees Celsius. This is the skin temperature, of course. That means that even in the city center, some of the buildings which were there earlier now have been replaced by newer buildings with new material. Now we don't have much of the tile roofs in the city center. And then most important, Okay, today there is a lot of disturbance even at my end, but fortunately, like I have my mobile hotspot, and that is why it is working. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you could see that with the help of remote sensing, we could very easily point out to the areas where there is a dramatic change in the land use and dramatic change in the temperatures. Now, this certainly is going to have its impact over the thermal comfort of the residents whenever they get out. The thermal comfort will be more discomfortable when the temperatures go, because the skin temperature, if it increases, it is going to lead to increase in the air, surface air temperature also. Even we know that the first the surface heats up and then the lowermost layer of the atmosphere. So this is what happens. And now this is in April 2016. Again, here we have temperatures in April 2016 in the eastern part showing the temperatures have gone up to 44 degrees Celsius. So from 28 to 44 or more than 44 degrees Celsius, this class is for 44 to 50. There is a drastic change in the temperature, even in the central part of the cities. But wherever you find agricultural college campuses there, the temperatures are still comfortable to 26 to 35 degrees Celsius. Areas very close to the river, the vegetation is there, where the temperature now is in the comfortable zones. So now there are other data sets also like MODIS, but these data sets, they are not very useful for urban studies, because see, this 2003 LST map is derived from MODIS data, and the data is very, very coarse, 1 kilometer of resolution. So that doesn't help in studying this heat island as such, okay? Because it gives a very, very coarse resolution, and we cannot pinpoint to certain areas with this. Okay. So this is for the now winter areas, sorry, winter season. Similar kind of output is there. Not able to, just a moment. And then with very simple techniques, what you can do in ArcGIS is that you can see the temperature difference. Okay. You can take, say, 2016 image, and you can subtract 2008 image or 1994 image from that to see the temperature difference. So that is what is been done here. Okay. So 1990 to 2008, again, you can see here in the eastern part that the difference is almost 12 to 16 degrees Celsius. And between 89 February during winter season, if you see, the difference is again, it is little less during the winter, 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, but still. Now, what is happening? What is happening because of this? When we look at the temperature extremes for cities, what we get from such kind of studies is that what it implies, when you look at very hot days and very cold nights, so it has an impact on the number of the frequency of very hot days and the frequency of very cold nights. So for Pune and many other cities, what we found that the frequency of very hot days is going up, okay, and the frequency of very cold nights, okay, it is reducing. That means earlier, because the minimum temperature is recorded during night and the maximum temperature is recorded during day. So what is happening, this UHI, it is magnifying the maximum temperature recording during the day, and therefore the extremes, temperature extremes, they are going up. Very hot days, they are increasing. So in the cities, and cold nights, they are decreasing. That means the nighttime temperature is higher now. So here earlier, like 30-40 years back, we were having very good lower temperatures during the night time, but that is not the case now in the cities, because the UHI, urban heat island, that is intensifying, which is having this kind of impact. Now, many of you, particularly from, now this is again related to NDVI, how to extract that NDVI. It is a very well-known concept. Maybe some of the members must have taken it earlier. So I'm not going to go into the details of NDVI. Okay. Then what you can do is that when you are using remote sensing data and you are using that with the help of some GIS softwares or putting it in a GIS environment, you can extract values of of points, say 100, 200 points, by generating some random points over a particular area. So values for LST can be extracted, values for NDVI can be extracted. So earlier with the conventional methods, this would have been very, very difficult to know the LST on a particular day at 100 places. So that is made very, very easy by the use of remote sensing. So here we have extracted LST and NDVI values with the help of ArcGIS or GIS software, and then try to see the relationship, whether, because we believe that whenever temperature, if there is vegetation cover, then the temperature should decrease. So it's a similar kind of relationship we are getting in different months: February, January, April. Okay, so for different months, and we find that as the NDVI increases, LST decreases, that is the land surface temperature decreases. Okay. So and very strong and significant relationship is been observed. So this is one of the strong points of the use of these geoinformatics techniques or the remote sensing techniques, coupled with the GIS environment, where you can actually extract number of points that you can define that how many points you have to generate. Okay. Otherwise, this would have become very, very difficult. Okay. Similarly, what you can do for a particular city area, okay, you can extract for particular areas. Now, in this case, because it is Pune, we have extracted for some areas across Pune and see the temperature. What was the temperature in the month of April 1990 and May? Now, one thing is that Landsat, it is having a 16-day revisit time. So that is not possible that every month you will get the same month data for every year, because you have to look for cloud-free data, a lot of other things. But April month, it is the hottest month for Pune, and May is the second hottest month. Okay. Now, April 1990, that time it was the hottest month. Okay. And May 2008, actually May is the second hottest, but still when you compare the 2 months, May 2008 temperatures that we have taken over many different localities in the city. So the localities include Alandi Road or the Sus Road, Pune University, Kharadi, MG Road, a lot of other like Kothurud. April 90, you see this red line, the temperatures are much lower compared to the May 2008. So the skin temperatures of all these areas, they have increased over the years because of the changing thermal regime of the Pune city. Okay. And then we have also, luckily, we are very lucky, whatever temperatures we have extracted, we try to compare it with the temperature that were measured in our observatory. But of course, those were the surface air temperature, and the satellite gave us skin temperature of the, or the surface temperature, you can say. Of course, there should have been a lot of differences in that. So the difference is usually between 2 to 3 degrees between the surface temperature and the surface air temperature. Now, I have given you a data set. Has everyone received that data set?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I will just show you certain slides, what you have to do with the data set. Okay. So retrieval of land surface temperature, because many of you must be having, some of you have got training in geoinformatics. For them, it may not be new, but some of them who don't know that, sir, you have explained us that LST difference, you can take, use remote sensing images and satellite data and then retrieve LST. So, but how to do it exactly? So some of the slides which will give you a very good idea about retrieval of land surface temperature. Now here we are thinking about taking Landsat 8 data, which is OLI data, and this TIRS. Okay, so Landsat 8 has got 11 bands. The bands are there on the visible on the screen. So you see this band 1 is coastal aerosol, then band 2 blue, then green, then red. Band 5 is near infrared, band 6 is sphere 1 band, and band 7 is sphere is shortwave infrared and sphere 2. Then you have panchromatic, then you have a cirrus band, and then the band 10 and band 11. These are thermal infrared bands. So we are going to use band 10 here, which is a thermal infrared band. But because this is not a normal wavelength, so here it is going to measure the energy that is emitted by the surface, not reflected. So that is why it is going to require some more area so that there is enough energy to be detected by the satellite sensor, and that is why the temperature, the resolution, spatial resolution. Everyone is aware about the concept of spatial resolution?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this spatial resolution, it is little less than the other bands. So here the spatial resolution is 100 meters, but it is good than the other sensors where you have 1 kilometer. So then what you do in the ArcGIS ArcMap interface, you take these different bands are given to you. All the data set of 11 bands is there. So select band 10, you add using the add button, you add this band 10 layer to the table of contents. Okay. After adding, then this is what you will find. Okay. This is what it will display. Band 10 is band 10 will be displayed. Then what you do next, the step 1, that you have to convert conversion to top of atmosphere radiance. So these DN values of band 10, they have to be converted to the top of atmosphere radiance, and for that this is the equation L lambda is equal to mi plus qcal plus al minus oi. So what are these? These you have to so it is L lambda, of course, is the top of atmosphere spectral radiance, and ml is the radiance multiplicative band. In the data that is given to you, there is a text file. That is a metadata file. From that metadata file, you are going to extract certain values for that band, and that values will help you to convert the DN numbers to top of atmosphere radiance. Okay. So so coming back to this, this is what we are going to follow, this equation. Now in the Arc toolbox, this is the icon over here, Arc toolbox, red toolbox. If you click on that, this window will open. In that, you have to go select spatial analysis, that you select map algebra, and there you select raster calculator. When you double click on raster calculator, this so this is the what you have to select. And in the text file that I have given to you, you please open the text file, and there, if you scroll down, there is this radiance multiplicative band 10 value is given 3.3420 exponential minus 4. Okay, minus 4 means the decimal point will shift by 4 digits towards its left. Okay. So there the text file is there, and this value is given here. I'm sorry, there is some problem. Just a moment. Okay, so this value is there, 0. You have to convert this 3.342. If you shift the decimal point, it will become 0.000334, something like that. Okay. And then when you open the raster calculator, you see this raster calculator is open. There you have to enter this equation which we talked about according to this one. Okay. So there what you are doing, this first you have the value, multiplicative value is entered here. See, this is how you have to enter 0. Don't enter this L lambda, but only this thing, this multiplicative value which you have got from the text file into, so this is band 10, which is here, Landsat 10. So you simply click into here, these are the buttons over here, click, and then you see this value into this multiplication with the band. Okay. So Landsat and then plus 0.1. Okay, 0.1. Why 0.1? Because radiance additive band, this value is 0.1 here. From your text file, you can get it. Okay. And then you also put that. And finally, you put 0.29. Okay. So 0.29 is the correction value of band 10. That OI is the correction value of band 10. Once you put everything in the raster calculator, then you have to give the location to where this new file that you are going to generate, that will be stored. So some particular folder you assign, and there you locate that, give the path, input the value. Here 0.9 is there on the screen, my cursor is there, that 0.29. You put everything, then you give the location, and after you give the location, see here, save that file as something like, the name can be radians. Okay, because that becomes your radians file, and then simply click OK. And so you'll find that after this is over, this new layer will be added, radians, that is the radians image will be added to the what we say, layers in the ArcMap. Have you got this? Dear participants? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then once you get the radiance image, then the step 2, this of top of atmosphere has to be converted to brightness temperature with the help of, so this step includes conversion of spectral radiance data to top of atmosphere brightness temperature. Okay, using the thermal constant values in the metadata file that I have given to you. Okay, so here itself we are going to convert it into degrees Celsius by putting in the conversion conversion of so Celsius. So output will be in Celsius. So you have to subtract 273 so that the values you get in the Celsius. So this is what the formula will be used. And so here again, K2 constant is there in the formula. So K2 constant is given in the file. You use that K2 constant in the metadata text file. Copy that K2 constant or note it down. Okay. Then, of course, you open the raster calculator again, put the value, okay, of the K2 constant. The next step will be division. And then finally, you also note down the K1 constant values also given in the text file that is there. You note down that value also. Okay. And L lambda is the radiance image. Okay. So you have got K2, this is log of K1 divided by L lambda. L means that is the radiance file. So radiance file is already there. It will show you, or the radiance image you can say. So here you have got two images now because Landsat 10 band was there and radiance image. So you give the radiance, double click on the radiance image, it will come in the formula. And then finally, complete equation in raster calculator and put proper brackets. You see that the proper brackets are there. I mean, so given, otherwise the calculations will be, the bracket also plays an impact. So here you have logarithm. So everything when you put, and you can save the output image as BT in the folder, that is brightness temperature, and just click OK. So it will be saved, and again it will be, by default, it will be added here as the, so BT image is there and it will be added at the uppermost image. So what you are looking at the screen is the BT image. Now you are having brightness temperature values. So you could see that here the temperature values are 22 degrees to 46 degrees. Then step 3 is you have to calculate NDVI. How to calculate NDVI everyone knows, and what is NDVI everyone knows, isn't it? So here you are having all the bands are given to you. Band 5 minus band 4. Band 5 is the near infrared. Band 4 is the red band, divided by band 5. There is some typographical mistake here. It is also divided by band 5 plus band 4. Okay? But here in the equation it is correctly given. So you generate an NDVI image. Okay? So you generate NDVI image, very simple here. Band 4 and band 5 are there. You simply add them and use in the raster calculator. Okay, band 5 minus band 4 divided by band 5 plus band 4. Save the image as NDVI. Here it is given that how the formula will look like. Okay. So basically it is the images, band 5 image minus band 4 image divided by band 5 image plus band 4 image, and you save it. NDVI will be saved. So this is the it will be again added to the layers. You have got NDVI. So you have got NDVI file. Step 4 is land surface emissivity you have to calculate, where you are going to use NDVI file again. So first you will calculate PV, where NDVI file will be, and where is PV? PV is proportion of vegetation. So how it is calculated? You are having NDVI file, NDVI minus NDVI minimum divided by NDVI max minus NDVI minimum bracket square of all of this. Okay. So this is how you are going to again use raster calculator. Once you get PV, then you put PV in the PV means PV image it will be generated. So that is proportion of vegetation, and that you are going to use it in this other formula, which will calculate land surface emissivity. Land surface emissivity will be the another image that will be stored. Okay, so okay. So what you are going to do here? You have got the NDVI minimum. So what is NDVI minimum value? It is already given in the NDVI image, where it will be added to the table of contents or layers as such. Okay. So there you will get one minimum value and maximum value. Minimum is there minus 0.1075 something. Okay, so that you note down, okay, that you put here in the formula, okay, and maximum is also there. Okay. So NDVI image plus the NDVI minimum divided by NDVI maximum plus NDVI minimum. So this is how the formula will look like in the raster calculator. Once you complete the formula, give the brackets, and it is square. All of this is a square. So from this menu over here in the raster calculator, you can first select square and then open the bracket and put everything in the formula. Okay. And save this image as PV image. The output image will be your proportion of vegetation image, which will be the PV image. Once it is calculated, now here at the top, you will find that the PV image is there. It has been calculated. It has been added to the layers. So you have got PV image. Once you have got PV image, then you can calculate the emissivity. Emissivity formula is 0.004 into PV plus, so that means the PV image plus 0.986. So that again, you open the raster calculator, put in 0.004, and PV image is there into PV image plus 0.986, store the output image as E, that is the emissivity image. Okay, and now your emissivity image is there, the topmost layer, it has been added. After you store it, after you click OK, it will be stored also, as well as it will be added to the layers. Okay. Once you add this image, okay, now you have got all the required ingredients to calculate your LST. And finally, you are going to calculate land surface temperature. The land surface temperature is the radiative temperature, which is calculated using top of atmosphere brightness temperature, wavelength of emitted radiance, and land surface emissivity. That is the last image that you have calculated. So this is here. So here you have to remember the value of C2 is 14388. That's because that is for the, and the values for wavelength for Landsat 8 for band 10 is 10.8, and for band 11 it is 12. But we are using band 10, which is 10.8. Okay. So everything here in the formula is given. What are these things? So BT is the top of atmosphere brightness temperature image. That is the image now. Wavelength of the emitted radiance. Land surface. E is the land surface emissivity image. Land surface emissivity, that is actually the image. And the other things are there. That is Stefan Boltzmann constant, and all those things are given here. Okay. So you open again the raster calculator. As you could see, this BT is that the image, brightness temperature image, divided by 1 plus 10.8 into again BT divided by this constant 14388. into log of E. Okay. So E is your emissivity. Emissivity you have to put. This is how it is going to look in the raster calculator. Once you do this, okay, and then finally you save your final image as LST. Okay. And once you do that, see, LST is calculated and LST's image is here displayed. Okay. Now what you can do is that it is all black and white because we have not given any symbology, not colored anything. So what you can do is that you can go to the image, it is there highlighted, right click on that LST. After right clicking, it will open up a pop-up menu. Here go to the lowermost part of that menu, properties are there. Right click on that, it will open up the layer properties. Go to symbology section, and in symbology you can select the color palette. So you can select like palette from lowermost temperature to higher. So your green temperature, if you want green to be shown by the low temperatures and red color representing high temperatures, you select that. After selecting, click on the apply button and you find that your LST image is ready. Now this is in this LST image, the data that is given to you, it is the same data. This LST image is in the month of April. Around here somewhere you have Pune city. Around Pune, all the agricultural lands, they are barren lands. There are barren slopes, and you know this here. This is the area where it is covered by black soils and dark igneous rocks. So they are more, actually more. The temperature in the outskirts, it is more because of the summer season, because of the soil is being heated up, the surface being barren, it is absorbing more and more heat. And if at all, I'm sorry, I did not give you shape file of Pune city. You can extract for a particular area also. For example, here I was having a shape file. You can, using add data, you can add the shape file of Pune city. Okay. Once you add the shape file of Pune city, then you can extract by mask. Okay. So you can go to this in the toolbox. There is spatial analysis tools. In that there is extraction. Then there is a tool for extract by mask. Okay. If you click on that tool, extract by mask, okay, this thing will open up. This menu will open up. So what you want to extract is LST and input raster or feature data, mask data. It is Pune boundary. That is already there. You can select from the drop down menu, and then where you have to save LST Pune. Okay. Once it is extracted, you will find that the LST map of the Pune city is ready, and here you find that in the city center again the temperatures are higher. Wherever vegetation is there, temperature, this is green color temperature, and so the temperature you can see over here, 24 degrees the lowermost temperature and 44 degrees the highest temperature. This is how you can actually extract LST values using a Landsat image band 10. You can try it out with band 11 also, but for that the multiplicative or those values will be little different. So this is how you can do. Now there is another study that we did. Of course, extraction LST is of course there, but because of the ever increasing urban sprawl, what is happening in the cities is that this impervious surfaces, they are increasing. Impervious surfaces are increasing, and where we find that wherever impervious surfaces are there, that means the concrete surfaces or tar surfaces, there the temperatures are much higher. So specifically we wanted to study these impervious surfaces and this land surface temperatures. So all those whatever normal steps are there, which I've also explained, that whenever you are using satellite data, conversion of DN, all these things I've already explained to you how you extract land surface temperature. But only one thing I want to tell you, if you are using Landsat 5 data or Landsat those TM data, for them that time when we, the historical temperatures when we derived, for them the the process is little different. For the recent like Landsat 8 and Landsat 9 now, 9 is I think launched. I don't, it was going to be launched. I think it is launched now. So the process is very simple. All the metadata files are there. Earlier, like when we derived for Landsat TM, we had to actually find out the distance between the Earth and the sun during that particular day, during that particular time. So there were some online apps that were available. Using that, we used to find out the distance and put them in the formula. But now the things are very simple. So here you can find the 1990 Landsat image and 2016 ATM. So again, here the same thing, that the built-up area, impervious surfaces, they are increasing, agricultural areas. So this we have already explained. But now, if you look at a particular area, suppose you say the Pune city, and in ArcGIS you can actually derive a profile for a particular, for a particular area, you can define, and that for this particular horizontal line, I would like to have a temperature profile. So like you can extract from points, you can also extract for a particular section, like we do a profiling. Similarly, your profile is there, 1990 profile. You see 1990 values over here for that city center and 2016 values. So what were the values? Values were between 25 to 30 during 1990, but now they are between 35 to 40, clearly indicating. So these are some of the techniques that you can use to get some more details of specific areas. Similarly, for some other areas also, you can extract these temperature profiles using extraction by line, or some other tools are there. And nowadays, like you are having certain softwares which are open source softwares such as QGIS, more or less some basic things, like it also has a raster calculator. So please try it out, whether it is possible. I'm also going to try out because I was having some time issue. Otherwise, I would have shown you. But now, in QGIS also, extraction of LST is now become very simple with some plugins. It will directly give you. Of course, NDVI is there, that we are not going to go into the detail. NDVI, relationship between NDVI and LST. When you find that wherever NDVI is less, you find LST is higher. So here we are doing some different, again, taking a profile that runs through the east-west profile of the, any city you take, here it is Pune city, and then east-west profile of LST and east-west profile of the NDVI, and you can find that wherever NDVI is less, LST is higher, NDVI is higher, LST coming down. Okay? So very good profile and very good to explain to your students also. Here you can find less NDVI, higher temperatures, higher NDVI, lower temperatures. Very simple and easy to understand. But in certain areas, it is the relationship is little disturbed because of higher disturbance of construction activities. So again, this shows you in the central part of the city that what is happening between the two curves, that the temperature has crossed NDVI, whereas NDVI has come down and temperature has come up. So very simple to understand that what is happening in the central part of the city, that the vegetation in the central part has drastically gone down. So here this graph shows you that the graph is drastically going down, but here what is happening to LST? LST has increased. Okay. Similarly, you can go for different areas. Now these are different areas, and what we have used, we have used some other method where we have used population density to actually build a model where based on population density, we could extract impervious surface. Okay, so that model which we built, okay, we built a model in the ArcGIS where we had a relationship between we had population density data for different wards, and we had we had the satellite images. So wherever this population density is higher, we gave some values, and that got converted into the impervious surfaces. Okay. So you see the classified image here. This is the built up. The population density is also here, which is higher. Okay. NDVI is there and LST is there. So all these relationships could be very easily found out for different areas. These are the conclusions which already we have been talking about. One now very important development that is happening is there is a group of scientists, and what they have done is that they have developed one model, that is the UDAPT model. So UDAPT stands for World Urban Database and Access Portal Tools. Okay. So using this model, what you can do is that you can delineate different local climate zones of a city, and then you try to understand the relationship between these different local climate zones and the temperature, that is the land surface temperature or the skin temperature. So what has been done, UH and all that, everything we discuss, that I'm not going to go into the details. So there were some work that has been done in Indian cases also, in case of urban heat island studies by Kotharkar and Bagde in 2018, by Lehnert in 2021, and by Kuan and Bansal in this year itself. Okay, and then delineation work of the local climate zone is also been done for some cities by again Kotharkar and Bagde in 2017. So how you are going to do, again this is for the Pune city we have done. These are just the details of the Pune city. So what we have done, data and methodology, of course, collection of satellite data, Landsat 8 satellite data we got for 2016. Then on Google Earth, we delineated certain LCZ. LCZ scheme is there, which has been given by Oak, that we used. And on the Google Earth image, we digitized some LCZs. LCZs are the local climate zones. So then this polygons, conversion of LCZ polygons, we did to shape files from the .kmg files. Then these shape files, these LCZ shape files were overlain on the Landsat. Now in this case, we use QGIS. QGIS, that is myself and my students. And then, of course, on the other side, we calculated LST and LST map for each LCZ. So how it is done? First of all, LCZ classification of Pune city, then digitization of LCZs on Google Earth, then superimposition of LCZ map of Pune city on Landsat image, and then other calculations like Laster layer extraction and all those. So these are some of the local climate zones of that have been derived, that have been explained by. So what are these local climate zones? For example, there are areas with compact high rise. There are in cities you have areas like it's a compact, the buildings are very close to each other, and the buildings are also multi-story high rise buildings. Then compact mid rise, compact but the buildings are not very high. So yeah, then compact low rise, again compact but the floors may be 1 to 2 floors or like that. Then open is there, open high rise, open mid rise. These are the zones, local climate zones that have been defined by Stewart and Oak. And then there will be certain areas where you have heavy industries, certain areas where you have dense trees, scattered trees, bushcraft. So all these we have been digitizing, and this is the area square kilometer where we found that these are the areas. So this is how you can, you have to be, it's a time consuming work that you have to do, and you have to digitize them on Google Earth. So there your KMG file is created, then you convert it into shape file. Once you digitize on Google Earth, then this shape file then was superimposed on the Landsat image. And once after doing it there, superimposed on the Landsat image, on one side we also extracted LCZ, so land surface temperature, which is already shown to you. After that, after superimposing, you have to run the model in the QGIS, and then you find that for different LCZs, you will get this different LCZs again you superimpose on the LST image, that is land surface temperature, and now you are having LCZ image. You superimpose and extract LST for different LCZs, and then you try to understand in different LCZs what is the temperature. So all these are the number of LCZs are there. So more than 50, 60 LCZs were there. So here you could find that suppose this is the compact high-rise LCZs. So here these are the LCZs, compact high-rise, and if you go back, what is the temperature over there? Compact high-rise, see, there the temperatures are little higher. So wherever you have compact, most of the time the temperatures are mostly high. Okay. Then all other like compact low-rise, open high-rise, heavy industries, and then you have some green belt LCZs where like this local climate zone where you have dense trees. Sometimes in certain areas you have scattered trees, bush or scrub, low plant. In cities also you have certain open areas where you have bare soil or barren areas are there. Some water areas are there. So what are these? Where are these LCZs located? And then finally the urban heat island. All these. So here you could find that for different LCZs, what is the temperature that you extracted. So it is not that always whenever you are having compact areas, the temperatures will be higher. I have already told that if there are barren areas, if there are open areas, the temperatures can be higher also. Like for example, here where there are LCZs with bushes, the temperature is 41 degrees Celsius. Where soil is there, where bare soil is there, temperature is still higher, 34 degrees, because it keeps on absorbing heat. But in the compact high rise, sometimes what happens is that this buildings, they also cast their shadow. So the shadow impact is also seen in certain areas, but when you try to compare it with some other LCZs, you will find that sometimes the residential compact is better than some other LCZs. For example, here you see heavy industry, the temperature is 42 degrees Celsius. But if you see compact high rise, the temperature is 38, because industries also keep on generating heat. And that is also been added to the, because, yeah. Then you can also measure surface albedo and all those kind of studies. And then you can extract surface albedo and try to find out the LST. So as you could see that the surface albedo, as it increases, the LST, land surface temperature, also increases. So these relationships you can study between albedo, LST, NDVI, impervious surfaces, LST, vegetation, all these things you can study. So these are certain conclusions. One more thing that I wanted to share with you. See, one simple exercise that you can do with the images. The LST image has been opened by me. I have shown you certain relationships. So one Gaikwad sir told me that you can give some exercises to the participants, that we studied the relationship and extraction of points. So So how to extract these points, or how to generate random points, that is also one thing that you can try out with the images. After you compute LST image and NDVI image, you can open this LST image, and for generating random points, what you can do is that open Arc Toolbox. In Arc Toolbox, you go to data management tools, and in data management tools, you select feature class, and in feature class, you have create random points. Now this create random points in data management tools, in some of the ArcGIS versions, it is there under sampling tool. So you please check it out. Okay. So like for example, here in some versions, it is there in Arc Toolbox, data management, sampling, and then create random points. In my version, it is there. It is there in feature class. Okay. So once you go to create random points, okay, so this kind of, you double click on that and this window will open. Okay. Once this window is open, output location, you can give where you want to store them, store the file, that location. Then output point feature class. Okay. So that name you give. So I have given RAN, that is random points. Okay. Then this constraining feature class, that you don't need to give. Constraining extent, that means over which extent, which image. So you already have an image. So you can give the image. For example, I have given LST image. So that should be the extent of the image. Otherwise, what will happen? If you don't give the huh? Hello?
Nothing was by mistake. Somebody has put on the mic. So I put it off.
If you don't give the extent, then the random points will be generated in some other area and they will not match with your. So you give the extent of your current LST image. Then here you put how many points you want, whether you want 100, whether you want 200, and then you just click OK. Once you click OK, you will find that the software has created random points for you. Once these random points are created, now there is a here in the layers it has been added, the random points are added. Okay. Now once these random points are created, then you have to extract using these random points, you extract certain values. Now here when you want to extract values, what you have to do is that now here in the random points, if you just click on the attribute table, it will show the point is there, but nothing is there. Okay. A point FID is given, all these are points, but no other values are there. Okay. So then what you do, then you go to extraction. Okay. In the spatial analyst tool, you go, there is a tool called extraction, and in extraction, there is a sub tool called extract values to points. Okay. You go there to extract values to points, click on that, double click on that, it will open this image, sorry, not image, it will open this dialog box. Here, input point features. Okay. So which points feature you want to input? So random points that we have created, that shapefile is there. In the drop-down menu, you can select that. And then input raster should be the LST. So from the drop-down menu, input raster will be LST. And output, you give the output also. So here the output is there with the path. So my output name, I'm just given random LST 100. So it will store it as with that name. And just click on OK. You will find after clicking OK, after doing calculations, this new shapefile is generated, which is random LST 100. Then here what you do, you see so same thing is there. Now here you can go to attribute table, and here you find that in the attribute table, what is there? Point is there, and here the extracted LST is there. Okay. Now from the attribute table, either you can export the values or you can keep it as it is. If it is as it is, because it will be saved as a DBF file, in certain versions of Excel, you can directly open that DBS file. Okay. So you can directly open the DBS file, or you can save when you are exporting, you can save it as a DBS file, all the data will be saved. But one thing that you will have to do is that what I have observed in the DBS file, what is happening is that this FID, they will not, when you open it in Excel, these FIDs, they are not visible. So what you do, you add one more field to it and you manually give the matching new IDs to the points. For example, I will show you. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Now see here, I've opened now this new ID I have given. I have given this. So this is very simple. You go to data management tools, your data management tools. In that you go to fields and then you say add field. Simply double click it. You go input table, you take the input table, suppose LST 100, field name you give, and then you save, and then it will be added. And then what you have to do is that you can go to edit features, start editing, click on that, and here you can, when the new field is added, you can give the matching numbers. Now here if you see FID is 1 and my matching FID is also 1. So once you do it, then you can directly open the file in Excel. See, if you give all files or DBF files, database files, so here you have, this is my new, this thing, you right click, no need to right click, you can simply select and say open. So this new ID has come, but not the FID. So now you have matching IDs. So these are the raster values. There you can change, this, for example, these are NDVI values. So you can copy these values to the LST file. So here I've copied the values. These are LST values and these are actually NDVI values. You can select them and this is how you can create a chart. And once you create a chart, you can easily say add a trend line to this chart. You want a linear trend line. You want to display equation on the chart and display R-squared equation. That is possible. And very easily you will get all the values. So here if you see, the equation is there. This is the trend line. Okay. So this trend line, you can increase the thickness and keep on formatting it. So this is how you can study the relationship between the LST and NDVI by generating random points. And whatever number of points, if you generate more number of points, so here it is 100, R square is 0.2474. So if you have more number of points, even if your R square is less, but still your relationship can be significant. So these exercises, I want you to do it yourself. The data is given to you. And if you have RGIS, well and good. And otherwise, you can simply try raster calculator in QGIS also. And also, apart from this, you will find many videos that are there now on YouTube, which you can use to understand how the LSTs are generated. And there is a lot of literature also available. So this is how using remote sensing, using geoinformatics, you can actually better understand the complexities of the urban areas. And particularly for studying urban climate, there are new sensors that are coming. I have heard that now you also have a Sentinel, but I'm not very sure about. There they have shortwave infrared band, but I haven't seen any thermal band. But the resolution are 10, 20, and it is freely available also. So you can use those also. Plus, you can use some of the freely available resources from Indian remote sensing satellites. But as far as thermal is concerned, you can use Landsat. But thermal infrared or thermal band data of MODIS, it is very, very useful for generating drought indices using remote sensing, for example, temperature condition index, okay, vegetation temperature index. All these can be for a very broad area. This MODIS can be used. And one advantage of MODIS is that the temporal resolution, the revisit time of MODIS is almost 1 day. So if you are using it to understand the thermal regime of a very large area, say for example, Maharashtra or 2 states, then you can use MODIS because the area is very large. So there the resolution, even if it is coarse, it doesn't matter. And simply you can do, now MODIS is available from 2001. This is 2021. So 20 years of data is there. Level 3 data is available, which you can no need to go for any kind of corrections. It is already corrected. Only thing that you have to do is that proper projection you have to apply, because that is MODIS. Now, I don't know, recently I haven't downloaded, but it is having that sinusoidal projection. So it doesn't work because you want a projection where you want to do certain calculations, like you want to calculate area. So you should have an equal area projection, because all the cells should be equal. So all these things, and these are readily available data sets. Even there are certain scientists who have improved upon MODIS. So using those MODIS data set, they have created improved MODIS data set. They are available in certain websites of certain universities. Okay. So they take the MODIS data sets, refine it, and then they again make it, give it for use to the scientists. So these are the advantages that you can do. And then a lot of other data sets you can try out also. But currently, like 2 data sets which I have used, MODIS for very large areas, and Landsat because it is having a better resolution, spatial resolution for the urban areas. Now, I think we can go for some question answers or for some discussion. Otherwise, afterward there won't be any time for that. Yeah, one more thing. I have seen that there is one for QGIS. There is one tool, one plugin is there, and in that plugin, if you want to extract LST and NDVI, you simply have to give the Landsat data, and it will open up one dialog box where you can simply click what you want. You want LST and you want NDVI. It will automatically compute and give you the results. So now the things have, you don't need to go, but you have to recheck. You have to confirm manually also how you are generating, and then what results you have got from QGIS. Because many times, now one thing that we have done in our thing, we also added emissivity correction. Because the emissivity correction, that is the emissivity file that we generated. Sometimes people stop at brightness temperature, because brightness temperature is also there. A very slight difference is there. But then why we give emissivity correction with the NDVI file and all that? Because it improves the accuracy. Otherwise, if you look at the temperature values as such, the difference is not much. It's very, very less. I have checked it. I don't know about others, but that is why in certain cases.
Which plugin, sir?
Huh?
Which plugin?
For QGIS.
Plugin name, sir. Plugin name.
Yeah, plugin. I think it is Landsat or something. Some plugin is there. LST. I will share the details with you, Gaikwad sir, because I haven't tried that, but I have seen one video where you have the plugin for QGIS, where after that you have to just give the data, and once you use that plugin, it will open up a dialog box where you have to simply give what you want to do with the data. You want LST, like there are boxes for NDVI, LST. You simply click on that and it will give you the output. But these are the plugins, it is from the open source software, so you have to check. You cannot just blindly believe everything.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question. Yes, sir. I've used this plugin. It's called RS and GIS plugin for QGIS, and I've used it to extract the land surface temperature. So, sir, what I've observed is I've done the other method also, like you're analyzing it through equations. I've done that method also, but my LST values are coming negative. The lower level values are coming negative degrees Celsius. So why could that be, sir?
Negative, yeah, sometimes you get negative, but then you will have to check with the data also. So,
Okay.
so if there are certain, for example, if there are no data values, pixels,
Uh-huh.
so if there are no data pixels, then what is the option you have given for no data pixels? Because the data that I have given to you, okay,
Oh.
for example, there I have specifically, it will say whether to include no data pixels. So I have said no.
Okay.
So whatever you have got, there are not, it simply has data on it. So you will have to check, and otherwise you check with the atmospheric correction.
Okay.
And which is the area, like if it is
The Kerala coast, sir.
yeah, so then we should be having moisture content and all that.
Water bodies.
So here you will have to be very careful there.
Okay.
Wherever water bodies are there, because
Okay.
whenever you have a moist soil, it almost acts like a water.
Okay.
So you will have to be a little bit careful with that.
Okay, so even the water bodies, the lake areas, all will be showing negative temperature. Is it,
Yeah.
sir?
So what you can do is that you can mask them. You can
Okay.
prepare a
No, but my
mask.
study area includes the all this, sir. Like it's a continuous study from somewhere else. So my study area includes the lakes and reservoirs as well. So
Yeah. But are you interested in water temperature?
no, sir, I'm interested only in land temperature, but
Yeah. So you can mask the water areas.
okay.
Nearby, you can have the land temperatures, isn't it?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Or can I ignore those negative temperatures?
No. Then you will have to find out, because you know what happens. So really, in remote sensing, the one most important part is the field visits, and
Oh, okay.
you have to investigate why you are getting negative, whether it is no data, whether it is something else, or whether it is something in the field that you need
Okay.
to do to confirm. Otherwise, what will happen if you ignore it? Then there may be something important that you will miss. So that is
Yes,
not
yes.
recommended.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have also gone through the RSGIS plugin of QGIS, and it is providing LST for band 11 and band 12. So does it need to averaging the band 11 and band 12 values? Or
No. It is not like that. No averaging. I haven't seen anything like that. But both of them, they are
which one
thermal
should
bands.
give you?
Now, which one is better, that even I cannot tell, because earlier there was no such thing. No, now we are having two thermal bands, isn't it? So I haven't tried it myself, but it is for you that you can do for this data set has band 11 also.
Yeah.
You should try out and see whether there is any significant difference. Well, the wavelengths are different, of course, for both the bands. So,
And
but
one
the
more
most
thing,
important is, when we can tell is when we can validate it. So you need to validate it on the field, but that we don't have temperature ground stations everywhere. So
Yeah.
wherever there is a station, you need to validate in that particular pixel using band 11. But that validation is also not that easy, because
At what time the satellite passes, that all we have to look into that, no?
No, but whatever it is, see, satellite will pass and then it will be, both the bands will be recording at the same time.
Yeah.
But the thing is that validation, if you look at the meteorological station, it will give you surface air temperature. Whereas here the data gives skin temperature, surface temperature.
Yeah.
So there is a difference. That, but mostly now, as far as I know, for Moody's, there were one Chinese university which the data that I use for Moody's, they have validated it, and also the algorithm that was used by Moody's earlier, the accuracy of Moody's is 0.2 Kelvin, so very high accuracy. So they have tested the accuracy also by validating. So in that Landsat case, of course the sensors are tested, but you need to see that which is giving. But now mostly I've seen people are using band 10.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Now, what I know, what I understand is that with Landsat 9, the temporal resolution is increased from 15, 16 days to it will be now 9 or 10 days, something like that. I don't know exactly, but it is the time that it is going to take to complete one revolution, it has been reduced so that it will come to the same place little bit quicker. Any other questions, please?
Sir, one more doubt, sir. Sir, this LST and NDVI, they will always have negative correlation, is it? Or is it dependent on some other factors?
No, whatever in our studies, we have observed negative correlation only. So whenever
Okay.
NDVI increases, LST decreases.
Okay.
It should be negative in all the studies that I have done. It is negative only, and it
Okay,
should be
sir.
like that. That the vegetation, because vegetation wherever it is there, you have evapotranspiration, which is a cooling process. So with this cooling process, it will bring down LST.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
As the session is open for discussion, dear all, you can ask question to sir. Then we can have a break, and I will release whatever I promised by 2 o'clock. I am also sanctioning a request for sharing the data. So whoever has mailed me, I have shared their rights to access the data. The data what sir has provided of this session is already been put on Google Drive. I have received some request that I have Granted. Okay, is there any question? Okay, if no question, then we can stop here for today. And I will consider this will be a time for you to prepare for the course end review test that we are going to have after 2. Okay, so I am thankful to Dr. Amit Dode sir for being with us. Despite of having a conference just finished yesterday and a very busy schedule at Pune University, as I know, he gave his valuable time to us and discovered the various possibilities that one can do with the remote sensing data for land surface temperature, urban climate change, urban heat islands, and various tools what he's shown in the ArcGIS, and also explain about the possibilities that one can use the satellite data, thermal bands, and the QGIS as a supporting tool. And that all, I think the new geographers as well as engineers and many of environmental science students or the research fellows as well as the senior professors are also there in this group. They can take up this ideas from this forum, and definitely they will be putting it into their research or the academic curriculum. Thank you, Amit sir, for being with us and sharing your ideas, thoughts, and the skills that you have learned throughout your experience. Thanks on behalf of Department of Geography, my colleagues of the Department of Geography, our college, Dr. Parvatibai Chogle College of Arts and Science Autonomous, and AICTE Atal Academy. Thank you once again, sir.
Yes, thank you again for inviting me and
Participants.
giving me this opportunity.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all the participants also.
Yes, sir. Sir, you can stop recording from your side.